Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Rev, we are here during this holiday period for two reasons. One, because we want to be with our audience. And two, we didn't win the Powerball. So, had we won that, was it $1 billion or something?
There's $1.7 billion now.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
And I just for fun of it, I buy a ticket knowing I won't win. But when I buy the ticket, I start thinking, well, what am I going to do?
So if you win,
right,
you're going to give me the ticket because you didn't intend to buy it or win. Okay, you heard it. You heard it here.
No, when people make the plans and. My son usually calls me and says, did you win? Did we win?
Did we win?
Did we win? Or
That's
did I win? In his name, did I win? Yeah. Anyway, we are privileged to have with us one of our favorite people, Noam Laden, who does the News Hour here at WABC as part of the morning show. And I grew up at Noam Laden. When I started radio, he was there in the studio doing the news then, and just a very special human being who comes with that calm spirit no matter what's going on in the world. You feel better when you remember Walter Cronkite when he would broadcast, you say, if he says it, I believe it. I feel the same way about Noam, and he's one of my peeps, which makes me even more, there's more credibility.
You don't give yourself enough credit because actually I got my start in New York City radio anyway, was on with you all those years ago. You guys gave me a spot on Sunday morning to do the news. Yep. And from there, I just
went downhill.
It was all downhill. Yeah. I got very fortunate, but I mean, my first gig doing anchoring news was on Sunday mornings. I don't know if you know that, but that's where I started.
I also know that when I first started, Chris Cimino, who went to
Chris Cimino, right?
Great guy.
NBC, he did the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gave a start to a lot, and even Reverend Bernard, had a little storefront, and I came along, and I
nobody had heard of him
gave
before.
His big break, and now he's got a major.
I remember people used to say AR who?
Yeah,
until you
exactly right. That's exactly right.
By the way, with all kidding aside, you have to go to a service at Christian Cultural Centers because it really is a remarkable experience. People there are so energized. They're energized when they walk in, and they renew that energy as they live, and they're just thrilled to be there. They travel great distances to be there.
Yeah. We have people who actually, and they can afford it because they own their own businesses, but they fly in from different parts of the country.
Wow.
And we have people who are bi-coastal, and of course we have people who are local as well. Yeah, it's an interesting mix of people coming together to celebrate and learn and grow.
It just shows you if you offer something that people value, they will attend.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to look at the news 2025.
Well, clearly maybe one of the biggest stories, and we can always argue about what the top 10 are. So these are just a random top 10. I didn't really put them in any order, but President Trump, you would have to say is probably the biggest story in so many ways of 2025. An inauguration that a couple years ago nobody saw coming. They didn't think he would make it back to the White House. Now he's back in the White House for a non-consecutive term. That's only happened once before. And he's been involved in a lot of initiatives over the last year or so. A lot of them abroad, right? I mean, trying to make peace all over the world. He's helped in the Middle East, which of course is a big story for the Jewish community. Helped get back the people, the Israelis and the non-Israelis who were kidnapped by Hamas. Negotiated their freedom. Has now negotiated, along with Steve Witkoff and others, the peace treaty in the Middle East that, for now anyway, seems to be holding.
You know, I talk to members of the Jewish community, and no matter where they are in the political spectrum, they readily admit he's been a great friend of the Jewish people. He is responsible for the release of the remaining hostages. Hopefully he recognized Jerusalem as the capital. The Golan Heights has become part of Israel. So he is a friend.
How do we understand that, though? I mean, is it because he personally takes interest in the Jewish people, or is it who he's surrounded by? And I know a lot of people that surround him who are very, very pro Israel, and he made promises to them that if they got him into power, he would be a big friend for the Jewish people. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
It is interesting that, though his policies are very unpopular with younger Americans, there's no two ways about it. Younger Americans do not feel the same way about Israel than people, let's say, over 50 do. So he's at odds with them for sure. But if you look at the older Americans, for the most part, they probably support what he's done in Israel because they've been longtime allies of the Jewish nation.
Yeah, although if you looked at the Orthodox community and you looked at the young people there, they also were very taken by him. He's been consistent when it comes to the Middle East. It's not like, he looks at poll numbers, obviously, in what you said. Doesn't look at poll numbers and say, well, I'm going to change my policy. He's been very consistent, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, well, and then, of course, there's the tariffs, which has been a big story. Immigration, he's done, well, a lot of people will agree, whether they're left or right. He's done a good job at sealing the borders. There's not this free flow of illegal immigrants crossing the border right now. Obviously, some of his policy is controversial about who he's sending back to their native countries. But one after one executive order, you can't say that this president's lazy. I mean, there's always some new policy. You may not agree with it. You may be very in favor of it, but it seems almost every day he's announcing something new that he wants to do.
Yeah. He's not good at condolence notes. Yeah.
What's that?
He's not very good at condolence notes.
Yeah.
Well, that's been his motivation, it seems. I made these promises, and I'm going to try my best to keep them in every way possible. But he has radically rearranged government in this country. Speak to that, Noam, please.
Yeah, well, he has essentially blown up certain things that he doesn't think are right. And for sure, with immigration policy, I mean, really, for decades, it didn't matter whether it was a Republican or a Democrat that was in office. It didn't seem to change very much. And he said, no, I'm done with this. And those policies seem to have worked. He has DOGE, right? He had Elon Musk led that task force that looked and searched for ways to save money. The tariffs, I don't remember, at least in my lifetime, where you had a president at the White House or his advisors publicly fighting with nations all over the world about tariffs. And he says in the end, he's brought a lot of money back to America, has even promised that many Americans will get some check next year, a tariff dividend check, because of his tariff policy. All those things, at least for me, are new. I don't remember a president in my lifetime doing this.
He's not afraid to enter those zones that for years people wouldn't touch, right? People felt, no, I'm not going there. It's not popular. It's not important. And he turned that around.
Yeah. Even the small stuff, like the penny, ending the penny, right? That's on his watch. And he said, it sounds silly. Why do we make pennies anymore if it costs more than a penny to have one? I mean, it seems sort of silly that you would say, like, why is he getting involved in the small stuff? But he likes that as well, the small stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think he continues. How do we reconcile the rhetoric? I mean, it is clear that he has said things about people, about industries, about communities. I mean, he said things that are obviously, you can't take them any way other than how he's presented them, and it's been offensive. How does a public, we're talking about all the good things that have been accomplished, but how does a public respond to the other realities of this president?
Well, I would guess that his supporters will tell you they don't agree with everything he says. I mean, the latest one that got controversy was Rob Reiner, right? He wrote what most people would describe as pretty horrible things about Rob Reiner in the immediate aftermath of him being murdered, allegedly by his own son and his wife, too. And I think if you talk to supporters, they'll say, you know, that's just part of who he is. You're going to get some stuff that I don't like. He's going to make public statements that are offensive. But those are the same people who then voted for him last time around.
I was reading an article by someone. He asked the question, will President Trump get to heaven, right? And he said, look, if you look at some of the things, for example, he mentioned the Reiner thing, that was offensive. On the other hand, if you look at some of the other accomplishments, and when you look at a person's record, you look in toto. They said, yeah, he's going there because the pluses outweigh the minuses. And, you know, I think that's part of religious tradition is that you do, when you look at a person, you give that person the benefit of the doubt. You look at the entire record. So you can be angry at certain things, and then people say, yeah, but the policies. How many times have you heard that? It's the policies. Yeah, the person is flawed, but the policies have been very, very beneficial for us.
Right, of course.
You see, this go ahead.
I'm sorry, Reverend, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is the dilemma that the Christians who surround him have, because their ticket to heaven is a relationship with a person, you know, Jesus Christ, not, you know, I did this good, I did that good. So they're in a dilemma, and that's why they've tried to even make him Christian and say that, you know, he's just a baby Christian and he's coming along. Because there's a difference in theology as to how one actually achieves heaven. If it's based on works, you know, then we have to judge. Okay, how did that line up based upon, you know, the naughty and nice list? Since it's Christmas, you know, we have to look at it that way. I don't know if they're going to ever reconcile, you know, their beliefs about that. But if we judge him based upon his works, you know, just what he's accomplished, what he's done, and if you could separate out all of the rhetoric, which is difficult for me, you know, because of some of the things that he said, it's going to be interesting to see how history records his presidency. Yeah. 50 years from now. What do you think, Noam?
I think you're right. I don't... they'll have to parse through all the comments. I mean, he gives us so much in the media as a reporter, constantly with the Truth Social. I mean, the access is unbelievable, unlike any other president. And that's why maybe some of the reason you get maybe so much that can be seen as offensive from him, because he's constantly talking, right? I mean, you think about the past presidents, Joe Biden, Barack Obama. Right. They only really would come out and talk to reporters when they had something, a policy they wanted to talk about. They wouldn't talk about what was on TV last night. They wouldn't talk about something in the entertainment world like he does.
Yeah. He's not scripted.
Yeah.
Right? Just comes out and lets loose on anything that's on his mind. All right, we're going to take a break. Noam, you're worried about your getting into heaven one day, right?
Yeah.
That's why you came on the show.
That's 100% why I'm here. Yeah. Hope you'll give me my blessing.
All right. We got our producer here, Jonas Jackson. So we'll be
giving us a signal, right? We'll be back with more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This shrimp and coconut sauce is divine. What's your secret?
Goya coconut milk.
How does it taste so good?
It's all in that real coconut flavor and that rich, creamy texture.
What about thickeners and added sugars?
None. Just smooth, coconutty goodness.
What can I make with it?
From curries to sweet treats like coconut flan, the possibilities are endless.
Goya coconut milk. Take your cooking to the next level. No question about it. Find it in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
We're talking with Noam Laden, who does the news hour here so well at WABC Radio and also part of the morning show. Noam, I know the Rev wanted to ask you something.
Yeah, look, we've got so much to cover in such a short period of time, but wrapping up our discussion with the present administration, you know, his promise was make America great again. He's going to focus on America. America's going to be wonderful. But some of his base is becoming concerned because he's been involved in a lot of foreign affairs. How do we understand that problem?
Yeah, well, let's go back to the assassination of Charlie Kirk earlier this year and all of his followers. And those are Donald Trump followers, no two ways about it. And when he spoke to them and asked them for their support, he talked about really America first, that I'm going to work on what's wrong with America. And so they just had a convention over the last weekend, and you had, they're still supportive of the president. They're not ready to abandon him yet, but they are asking that question. Why are you trying to solve things overseas when there's so many things wrong right here?
Well, if you put J.D. Vance next to Donald Trump, I think there'd be a divide in terms of one favoring more isolationist and the other still feeling, there are things out in the world that we need to address. We can't just keep to ourselves. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think you have to be part of the world to make, for so many reasons, but they're asking, there's so many different peace processes he's been involved in, right?
Right.
And some people are
bragging
mad
about them.
And maybe rightfully so, bragging about them if he was really instrumental in making peace in these places. But again, his supporters will say that's not why we elected you.
But he's not afraid, is he? He's not afraid to go where others are afraid to go. Whether it's Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, right? Whatever the crisis is, he wants to address it. And for that, I think you're deserving of credit. By the way, before we go to the next topic, I just want to say I am impressed with Ben Shapiro. I met him here at WABC. Rev, you met him some time ago. And the fact that he'll go after members of his own party, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, I think takes much courage, because it's very hard to criticize your own, but he wasn't afraid to do so. He goes after.
But you're speaking specifically about Israel, his position on Israel, correct?
Yeah, and the anti-Semitism.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that he'll go after them, he'll go after those on the left. I find sometimes, and I have to say this: there are those on the left who don't go after the left, but those on the right who do go after, the right. So he's to be commended in my eyes. But let's go to, we don't have you that long.
One of the big stories of this year was the passing of Pope Francis. That was back on April 21st. He was 88 years old. And then maybe, at least for me, maybe not for you two, I was shocked when all of a sudden we got an American Pope.
Well,
I never
we got
would
inside information. They called us.
Oh, they did
before the decision was made.
Yeah, we got Pope Leo from a guy from the Windy City, from Chicago, and here he is, and I think that for sure, and within the Catholic world, was the biggest story of the year.
We got a cardinal now from the Windy City, right?
Yeah, that's right. And now Archbishop Dolan had to give his resignation, as you do at age 75, and Pope Leo accepted that resignation. And now Ronald Hicks, who's a bishop in Joliet, Illinois, will come here in February and become the new Archbishop of New York.
Look, Rev, you and I have enjoyed an extraordinary relationship with Cardinal Dolan.
15 years,
15 years of closeness, where we could say whatever we wanted to one another. I've been friends with a number of cardinals over the years, but Cardinal Dolan has been exceptional in terms of his outreach to the interfaith community. Cardinal O'Connor was also very good that way. But interfaith is, and I was talking to the new cardinal coming in, and he said that interfaith for him is a priority as well. So I think he's going to continue the legacy of Cardinal Dolan. And Cardinal Dolan will remain in New York.
Oh, he is going to stay here.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And he seems to be more progressive. Cardinal Dolan was quite conservative in his views, but this Pope and this Cardinal coming in seems to be more progressive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the issue of immigration has been discussed. Cardinal Dolan, I remember the statement he put together. He was pretty strong on immigration. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of daylight there. But just a remarkable, I was taken with his soul. This is a guy who would meet you, embrace you, and you would feel, wow, he really cares. Some people look at you, but they're looking behind you to see who's the person next that I have to talk to. He looks at you and really very sincere, a great representative. So we're going to have two cardinals in New York, right? which is not unusual for the Jewish people. We have 2 chief rabbis in Israel, so we can have 2 cardinals.
Why not?
Yes,
Two's
we had
better than one.
we had the Cardinal Egan and Cardinal Dolan.
Right.
Yeah, well, we had 2 popes for the
That's
first
true.
time.
We did have 2 popes.
Yeah.
Two living popes, for the first time. So, so what's next?
Okay, so you can't talk about 2025 without the biggest political story in New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Back in back in February, he was at 1% in the polls. 1% in the polls, right? And then he went on to beat Andrew Cuomo in the primary in June, which was a shocker. And then went on to win as mayor. And so he'll take over in just January 1. He'll take the oath of office. And there's so many different aspects of what was a wild campaign, but it'll be interesting to see how he governs. He's a progressive. He doesn't deny it. He's proud of it. He's a socialist. He's proud of those socialist roots as well. So how will it all play out when he takes over in January?
Yeah. I had a good friend of mine is a political pundit, and he said, if you want to become a great mayor, you can't write off, say, 2/3 of the New York Jewish community. You can't turn your back on them. You have to work with them. I don't know where this is all going to go. So you can't just be the Democratic socialist as the mayor. You have to be the mayor of other people as well, of other groups. But we'll see. So far, he hasn't compromised on.
But the 3 of us know that this New York is a machine. It's a machine that is in place, and just coming in and putting in new commissioners doesn't change that machine.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. And in 100 days, he's got to build coalitions, build relationships, both local and federal, and of course state. And that's not an easy task. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Also, Noam just stepped up for me. He just has a commitment he can't break. But the young people who are energized, right? That was, we always say young people, they don't care. They're apathetic. They weren't apathetic here.
Isn't that how change has taken place politically and socially in our nation? I was reflecting on the 1960s and 1975 specifically, and man, the things that changed so radically. You had the you and I were talking about this the other day. You had the old people, not the old people, the seniors saying,
mature.
What's going on? What's happening here? And they have young people saying, finally, things are changing.
Yeah,
we're seeing that today.
Yeah, you and I had a very good discussion the other day. I said to you that when African Americans see a noose, it's a symbol of hatred. It's a symbol of horror. When Jews hear the words globalize the intifada. It's hatred and horror. So that's why a number of us have strongly said to this mayor-elect, denounce it. Don't discourage it. That doesn't do anything. Denounce the phrase.
You want him to use that word, denounce. Denounce.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Denounce the noose. You wouldn't just say, I discourage people to, put a noose on a door, and then when someone says, when he says, I won't use it. Well, that means you won't use a phrase that means kill the Jews. I mean, that's just weak. That's not what needs to be said. So we got to keep pushing that.
Well, you made it clear your feelings about this new mayor, but I think the reality is, no matter who is mayor, we have to work together. That's the only way we're going to make progress. But you don't, and if you could push that kind of change, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
but
you don't compromise your core values. You working together doesn't mean that you have to in some way camouflage who you are. Be yourself. Look, I just see in the distance Sid Rosenberg walked in. I said to him one day that my father was a big believer in being a proud Jew. He said, I don't care what kind of Jew you are, be proud. Whether it's a Catholic, a Jew, no matter what your tradition, be proud of who you are. And therefore, don't be afraid to say what needs to be said. And even if it costs you some of your popularity, so what? You can look in the mirror and say, I stayed true to principle.
And we have to have that conversation about core values. Exactly what are we talking about? So, hey, but we got to go to another break, right?
We do. We're going to come back with more discussion.
All right. So stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Discover Mercer Lab's Museum of Art and Technology in New York City, where creativity meets innovation. This holiday season, immerse yourself in a world of interactive exhibits, digital masterpieces, and unforgettable experiences. Whether you're with family, friends, or exploring solo, Mercer Labs invites you to see art and technology in a whole new light. Get your tickets now at mercerlabs.com and redefine your museum experience.
The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Rev, you want to talk about core values?
Yeah, you mentioned them, but you got to stay true to your core values. What do you mean by core values?
I look at the beginning of the Jewish experience in our history, Abraham. What is it that Abraham embodied, besides being the first Jew? It meant you were an ethical monotheist. He believed in one God, and he believed that when you believe in God, that ethics has to be an integral part of that belief. It's not just, well, I'm not sure this is going to come out the right way, but it's not just vertical, it's also horizontal, which was the side of the cross. But it has to be that kind of relationship to God and to people. You can't just, you can't bifurcate and say, well, I go to the synagogue and I pray, then you go out and you do something that's inappropriate, or it could be a church, wherever. They have to be connected. So I think core values to me is ethical monotheism.
Okay, so see, we call orthodoxy and orthopraxy.
Right.
What you practice has to be consistent with what you believe. And if there's a situation that you face that's going to challenge your beliefs by bringing in practices that are contrary, you have to stop and say, wait a minute. And make some decisions. Your values are what's important to you, what you stand for, what you're willing to fight for, and sometimes what you're willing to die for. Not everyone has a clearly defined set of core values. Because when we say core, it's like, okay, these 7 things are non-negotiable, unchangeable. And if they're challenged, I'm only going to get stronger and double down. Not everyone takes the time to establish what's that important to them in life. And that's where religion should form and shape morals and ethics and this sense of values. Don't you agree?
That's why I mentioned Abraham, because, again, first Jew. I see people who in their core values care very much about the other, but are not committed to their own. You and I have discussed tikkun olam, repairing the world. That's a very, very sacred concept. But when you repair the world, you don't ignore your own people. And I've seen demonstrations where people are out there, and they're demonstrating for all the others who are beleaguered. But when Jews are in pain, those same people are not visible, not vocal. So I think you got to be very clear and consistent with core values and include your commitment to your community as well as other communities as well. But you're right. You got to look in the mirror and say, who am I?
You raise a problem. You said Abraham was the first Jew. He was Hebrew. The term Jew came along the tribe of Judah much later than Abraham.
Right.
There are those who say that, and I look, the history says that he came from Mesopotamia. So his identity is not necessarily as what we know today as the Jewish community. He was definitely the father and progenitor of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that, Rabbi?
It started with him, and it evolved. You have to start somewhere. And I start with Abraham, and then you can go through the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and and then you build. It's like the 10 Commandments. There are 613, but you start with the fundamentals and you build on them. That's they're foundational. The same thing.
And you know why I say that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know why I say that? Because he is the father of the 3 Abrahamic faiths.
Right.
So you've got Christianity, you have Judaism, and you have Islam. You know what I mean? So out of him came these 3 expressions of monotheism, which is, interesting. That's a whole nother show, but you raised the question.
So I was reading an article written by Jeff Jacoby, and he writes that newsletter, Arguable. And he said he was in Europe and went to a synagogue. And this is true of almost every European country. To get into a synagogue in Europe, you got to go through an armed camp. There are police with weapons, all kinds of detection devices, because it is so dangerous going to a synagogue. And then he said he walked by, churches, and you didn't see the same kind of armed camp. And he said that says to us that we have a responsibility. If we're part of the Abrahamic faiths, then we have to protect each other. Then there has to be a huge outcry when you see Jews who are, after we saw October 7th, now we see Australia. There's got to be a loud outcry from those who are not Jews and saying, this is unacceptable. We can't tolerate this if we truly are part of the Abrahamic faith tradition.
Yeah. No, I agree. You know my stand with regard to that 100%. I make no apologies for that responsibility to each other. But it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to understand. I mean, we're Christians. You and I were talking about what's happening in Nigeria. And, Christians being killed in Nigeria. And it's a very complex situation that we have to understand involves longstanding ethnic, economic, and political conflicts. I was there in Nigeria. All right. I was going up to Kano. I'd been down in Lagos, and then we went to Kaduna, Kanos, and they were blowing up the pipelines. Of the oil pipelines from running from north to south in protests. And these were, Islam, Muslim and Christians in conflict with each other. So this goes back quite a bit. And, there's severe religious and ideological dimensions that are involved in this whole thing. But we don't hear it that way. We don't hear the nuance.
I'm just going to say, when you pick up the papers, how little is said about what is happening in Nigeria. Our good friend Bill Devlin sent us a text about a Christian who was sentenced to death. And Bill and others fought, assiduously for his release. Matter of fact, Bill even offered to trade his life for that Christian. And finally, the Christian was released. But the story of what's happening in Nigeria, look at what the Middle East coverage, and look at African coverage, right?
Yeah.
Significant difference. A lot less ink is used in the papers when it comes to Africa than what is happening in the Middle East.
Yeah. There's not that breakdown, that understanding. You've got Boko Haram, you've got radicalized Fulani militants, you've got bandits that are there, kidnapping for ransom. I mean, there's just so much going on that it's not as simple as Christians being killed. Yeah. There's a lot of dynamic behind it. So what are we talking about? End of the year.
End of the year. So I ask you this question. I know people make resolutions, and I know the Jewish New Year doesn't have all of that celebration, the partying, but it might be meaningful. Not that there's anything wrong with partying, but it might be meaningful to begin the new year by reflecting on how we can be better. I've often felt, and I think this goes back to Joe Lieberman, who said, how about if we begin with an apology? How about we all say, we've wronged one another? Let's say I'm sorry, because, some people, for them to say I'm sorry is painful. They become, the lips become frozen. But maybe a little bit more kindness, a little more contrition would go a long way as we turn the page on a new year. And I've come to learn as I get older, kindness is essential. You want people who are nice. You want people who care, not that callous treatment. I used to hear years ago, oh, this doctor doesn't have bedside manner. Well, how about all the other people who don't have that kind of manner, who just don't say thank you, don't reach out? We talked about Cardinal Dolan. You want to talk about bedside manner? He's an exemplar, of compassion for other people. We need more of it. There's a shortage of that quality in the world.
Isn't that what is summed up in the greeting shalom? Shalom is more than just peace. It has to do with rightly ordered society, a rightly ordered relationship. And I'm speaking to you. This is in your context. Yeah. It means more than just, peace. How do we get to peace if our relationships are not rightly ordered? Yeah. If our society is not rightly ordered? Rabbi, speak to it. Shalom.
Shalom, and it means complete. And if you want to have complete peace, you have to have some kind of order, some kind of moral order. As we said before, you got to stand for something. And in that standing for something, you have to stand for others. And you have to care about others. That's why the creation of the world, Adam and Eve, it began with those two. But think over the years what the commandments were. I think if you take the first and last letters of the Torah, it spells the word lave, that means heart. Here means you got to have a head, got to be bright. But if you don't have a heart, if you don't reach out to others who are hurting, you're incomplete. So you want to understand what complete is, make sure that compassion is part of that equation.
Yeah, that's very important, especially in such a divided and polarized time that we're seeing in our nation. And people are suffering from a deficiency of empathy, Rabbi. Yeah, it's amazing how we can just look the other way or turn to our beliefs and deny the realities of those that are being hurt. It's just...
And the contempt for the other. And when you don't have that kind of compassion, the other, the stranger, becomes someone who's distant, who cares, not part of my immediate family, and it becomes very often hatred for someone who's different. And we've seen that play out in a number of ways. So as we begin the new year, let's hope we work a little harder to bring people a little closer to each other, because going back to the Bible, we're all family. We're all with that spiritual birth certificate, the same one.
Yep, the Imago Dei. Yeah, so we've got a break again. Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rev and the Rabbi, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
The announcement was made this week of new fire commissioner Lillian Bonsignore, who's been with EMS for some 30 years. And I had a conversation with former fire commissioner Cassano. I have a conversation with him twice a day about a host of things. He's just so knowledgeable of what goes on, especially with the fire department. Look,
but she's not new.
She's not new. She's not new.
EMS, right?
Yeah, EMS for 30 years, and she's worked with fire. She hasn't put out fires, but when you're in EMS, you work with those who do put out fires. So you're not walking into something that is new to you, but you got to work alongside of someone who's proficient on the fire side. So I believe that her first deputy commissioner will be someone from fire. So you have the fire and EMS, and that's a combination. But one of the things you realize, and we're very close to Commissioner Tucker. He's been on the air, and now Commissioner Mark Guerra, who for the remaining period is commissioner, who was sworn in by the mayor. There are some great people who are able to assume leadership roles in the FDNY, and Commissioner Cassano will tell you it's a well-oiled machine. It runs well, but you have to know how to work with others. You got to value your chiefs. You have to consult. You have to, listen. By the way, in general, I think there's a listening deficiency in the world. I walk down the street, everybody with the earbuds, and they're listening to something else, but not to one another.
But you know what you're saying? You're saying that it's a culture. It's a set of values, principles that have developed over time, a set of behaviors, understandings, perspectives that any new leader is stepping into, unless they came up through the ranks. And if you don't build the kind of relationships necessary, you won't be an effective leader.
Well put.
So you're right.
And surround yourself. What was it? It was Mike Bloomberg used to say it. You and I have said it. Surround yourself with smart, capable people, and you'll look better.
Right.
but people.
That's it.
What did you once say? If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You need a new. Yeah, you need a new room. You need a new room.
I mean, you don't have all the answers, but in order to get the answers, you need to have people who really understand, the work, who've been involved for years. Experience counts for a lot. I know young people don't like seniority. Let's get rid of these guys. They've been around too long. But you do need people who are seasoned, who are really understand the intricacies of a department so that you can learn with them and from them.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to work? The wisdom and experience of the old and the excitement, innovation, and creativity of the new should come together and be a force for the future.
The Bible says that ask the elders and they will teach you. Don't, and unfortunately, I think we live at a time when people sometimes discard those who are older. What do they know? They're old-fashioned, they're arcane. Let's ship them off somewhere. Let's relegate them to some place of insignificance. That's not a healthy thing. I don't know how much time we have left.
You're going to have a part in that, though.
What's that?
You're going to have a part in. You're having a role in this because you're the chief chaplain.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to working. I'll work with whoever the commission is, but I got to tell you, I'm surrounded by greatness there. I've been with a number of commissioners going back over the years, and I can tell you it is one of the great honors of my life because you see people who love what they're doing. They don't just know what they're doing. They love what they're doing, and saving life is what they want to do, and they do it so well. So welcome the new commissioner, but thank you to all those who served before her. I want to say something to you because we talked about the news of the year. You have ventured into a very important project in New York that addresses affordability. Everybody talks affordability, but you're doing something about it. Talk about that.
I will tell you, thanks for bringing it up. I have been around the country and interacted with clergy, across the country for the last 4 decades that I've been in ministry. I was a banker for 10 years and then, accepted a higher calling into ministry. But I've been at this for 47 years. And, you can preach about, caring for your neighbor and being involved, but the question is, what are you doing? And we were blessed to have, 10.5 acres in New York. Wow. Can you imagine? 10.5 acres in New York.
Wow.
And the question is, what are we going to do? Are we going to build, this huge megaplex that is specific to what we do only, or are we going to reach out to the community? And we made a decision that we are going to put the community first and continue to be an agent of change. So 8 years ago, we started a process of converting these 10.5 acres into affordable housing. It is the largest affordable housing project of its kind in the country. It's over $1 billion development, and we're bringing 2,000 units of mixed income, which is important. You have Mamdani who ran on affordability. Our president mentioned it, but not in the same way. But yeah, it's tough because you have a whole generation of young people who have grown up in the city here, and they've got good jobs. They're making $120,000, $130,000, $140,000, $150,000, but they still can't afford to live in the city.
Right.
What do we do? So we not only need poor and working class, but we need middle class affordable housing. Can you imagine a middle class affordable housing crisis? So what we did was put together 2,000 units, including 130,000 square feet of retail and commercial space, an open plaza. We're bringing in programming for young people, sports programming, a cyber cafe, and it's a very, very exciting notion. And we've already got 4 buildings up already. In the first 2 phases, and we continue to expand. So thanks for mentioning it.
What does that say, though, about a partnership between the faith community, the business community, the government, community? You all have to work together. Can't have a separation. Church, state. I mean, this shows you church and state can be very effective together.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, because of the cost, it is difficult to do affordable housing without these kind of partnerships with government, private sector, and the faith community. You can't do it. It won't happen. So these kind of relationships and partnerships and collaborations are critical in response to the affordability crisis here in New York City, and not only here. In parts in major cities across the country.
And of course, keeping with your promise. That penthouse apartment for me, it means a lot to me that you were offering me that penthouse. I just thank you for that.
Well, hey, look, let it out to the public.
You didn't say it was going to be there. You didn't. Penthouse somewhere. Someone could be in another state, another country. Yeah. No, but
affordable housing means a lottery and people. Because you're going to put all of his members in there. No. There's a strict rule. There's a lottery. You submit your name. You have to meet the qualifications, and you get in. And the reason we did it this way is we wanted to change the narrative. We're in East New York, underserved community, stressed community, and the narrative has been the way up is out. We want to change that. So when you create housing that scales from low income to middle income, along with 110 units of affordable home ownership, now you're creating a system that allows for upward mobility. So instead of losing to other states and other parts of the country, this intellectual and creative and innovative capital of these young people, we get them to stay and pour it back into the community. And that's what we want to do.
Doesn't it also say to us, and we've seen this in action, don't write off communities. You go back to some of the areas in New York that years ago where, you were afraid to walk there during the day. And now the hipsters are there. You can get a latte. It's a whole different transformation. Which means when people have a vision and are willing to follow through on that vision, you could make a difference. So you're going to transform an area that many had written off, as you had said earlier, and they said, "Well, we move up, we move out." That's not going to happen here, and you deserve a lot of
Rabbi. When we built our church there, that was a corridor for sex trafficking coming into the United States.
Wow.
It was coming through there. Prostitution, young 13-year-old girls being turned out in prostitution. And coming in there, we were able to clean all of that up and really change the community. Wow. And that's what churches should do. That's what synagogues and houses of worship and religion should do within the society.
Well, thank you for being an exemplar of that creativity, that vision that you followed through and made into a reality. And let me wish you and your family and everyone listening a new year that is replete with the blessings we want for ourselves and for others. Let it be a better year. I don't know about a great year, but at least let it be better.
Amen. And to all of you who celebrate Christmas, a very merry and blessed Christmas to you and your families.
And to the rest of us who will go to the movies and Chinese restaurants, Chinese thank you so much as well.
Chinese food,
All right. Thanks.
Till next time, the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks. God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear the Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.